What's up guys, Evan here. In today's video, you are going to learn why GTO is not the holy grail, the path, or the way. How FlopZilla can teach you how to count combos like a pro, which is the foundation of high-level poker, and how to make money without making a hand. Let's get stacking.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to my free webinar. I know the price of admission is very cheap, but I also respect how you guys are spending your night with me. I know your time is valuable these days and everybody on the internet is competing for it now, so I'm going to make sure this presentation is worth your time. This is going to be Master the Flop, 5 post-flop plays that are killing your results. I had a lot of fun making this. I hope you guys enjoy it too. Let's get into it. Remember me? Hey guys, my name is Fitzgerald. Very brief introduction before we get into the content. I've been a journeyman poker pro since 2006. I have WPT and EBT final tables along with WCOOP and Scoop event wins. I have nearly 20 major final tables. A major in this sense being defined as a weekly tournament with a 500K guaranteed prize pool or higher, or the flagship major on a poker website. That picture to the right is me in Atlantic City a couple weeks ago where I was lucky enough to cash in the Borgata Poker Open. Exploitative poker. I'm also, to my knowledge, the first poker coach to popularize the unorthodox exploitative poker style. I've literally done more private poker lessons than anyone on earth, as far as I know. It'd be pretty hard for someone to catch up to me. To keep my clients, I don't get to indulge in waxing poetic. I have to deliver results. And what delivers results is exploitative poker. GTO poker is great for high-stakes games, but very few poker players are in those games. My day job is teaching poker because, frankly, playing tournament poker is very unstable. You have years where you make hundreds of thousands and years you make nothing. 8 years ago, I decided I was sick of that and began teaching people how to play the game. It's been a lot of fun, but what I like most about it is there is no BSing myself with poker coaching. One person can run good, but if hundreds of people try your methods, you will find out very quickly whether your strategies are right or wrong. I love that pressure because it helps me figure out what works and what doesn't work extremely quickly, and it helps me augment and understand my game more fully. I have to ask you guys this before we go further, and I want you to answer yourself honestly. Has GTO done anything for your poker game? People have been talking about it for years. If it was going to help you, wouldn't it have happened by now? Exploitative poker is really beneficial for 99% of poker players who play with only mediocre pros and recreational players. No one will know what you're doing, especially if you are in your 50s or you're female or anything other than a white 20-something male, so you shouldn't really worry about people exploiting you. Exploitative poker also has a number of practitioners among professional players. Riards Dobelis, a professional player from Latvia I work with, had this to say. This graph, the one we're looking at, is the period I decided to implement GTO concepts into my game. I was using some exploitative stuff, but was mostly focusing on using GTO lines so that I could be balanced versus the field I was playing. Worst idea ever. This was the worst year of my career. This is the graph since I stopped using GTO concepts altogether and went on to play hard exploitative style. One thing I sure realized, that balance doesn't matter. He is Latvian, so this is going to be Latvian English. Even the players who are trying to play optimally balanced style have enormous leaks in their games waiting to be exploited. Another great thing about poker is that you play versus humans, and I think it very well established fact that humans are prone to making illogical decisions in stressful scenarios. That is the time when exploitative style prevails. Riard speaks fluent English, so I guess just reading the quote, I didn't realize there were a few grammatical errors. But yeah, essentially, if you want to learn how to exploit Euro fields, including PokerStars fields, I'd highly recommend you contact my friend Riards, by the way. You can see riardpokercoach@gmail.com. He's the best I've ever talked to about that field of study, the Euro regs and exploiting them. I'm convinced he's the one to watch in Eastern Europe right now over the next 5 years. Now, I really thank Riards Dobelis for sharing this with us because many guys are reluctant to share graphs. I just also wanted to show you how these concepts do apply to the toughest online fields. They only get easier to apply in live poker where people don't see many hands and on other online poker sites where there's far less regulars and professional players. Okay, anyways, that's enough non-poker talk. Let's discuss some concepts. You want to see 5 mistakes you're making post-flop that could be cleaned up? Let's get into it. You raise pre-flop. You are in a $110 live tournament. A bunch of runners at your local casino. One of the bigger tournaments in your area. Online, this would be the equivalent of like a $22 tournament on a football Sunday. The big blind, a fairly nondescript average player calls. You c-bet on this board and he calls. So the board comes 6 of hearts, 8 of diamonds, 5 of clubs. You have ace, king of diamonds. You c-bet 163 into 325 and he calls. The turn comes the 4 of diamonds and he checks to you. If you answer B, you have to say an amount. There's 651 in the pot. You can also say a percentage of the pot. It's worth noting that you want to do, if you want to get the full value out of these video lessons, you need to keep a pad and paper and write down your answers, then compare them to mine. Okay, time is up. If you said check, then that is wrong. If you said bet half pot, that is wrong as well. Let me tell you why. We're going to use a program here called FlopZilla. If you're not a big fan of poker software, I get it. Most of it is not very effective and it's designed to help you part with your money. However, every serious poker player should have a copy of FlopZilla. All it is a range visualizer. The designer was also kind enough to put some statistical breakdowns of all the combinations, but what it really does is just help you visualize what your opponent could have. This helps people like you and me who weren't born with the ability to do combinatorics in our minds. I don't work at NASA, and neither do you, so it's a good idea to not pretend like we do. So let me show you how to do this like a champ. First, you put your opponent's big blind calling range underneath starting hand and your own hand under dead cards. So under starting hand, you want to put his calling range, and under dead cards, you put your hand. Now, you might be saying this is BS. I don't know his calling range. Good point. That's why you pick the most insanely difficult big blind calling range you can imagine. You'll notice this one has Jack, Jack, and 10-10 in his flattening range, but not King 7 offsuit. That is an absurdly strong range. But we want his range to be that strong. If you can bluff his best feasible range, you can bluff any of his ranges. And you're always looking for the bluff because that's really where all the money is in No Limit Hold'em. Anyone can win with cards. The real grinders make money when they have nothing. Now you take this range right here and you add the flop. Now you'll get a breakdown underneath statistics of all the hands you could possibly have with that flatting range on that board. Once he calls, however, you want... So once you c-bet the flop, so far what we've done has been establish his calling range, and you saw me toggle the flop on and on. Sorry about that. My finger slipped. We put his calling range, we put in the flop, we have our hand. Once he calls, though, what happened after that is he called our c-bet. Once he calls, you want to put a blue filter next to all the parts of his range that you think are calling. So you'll notice I don't have straight marked because I think he fast plays that, or 2 pair. Because most guys are afraid their good hands will see bad boards where their action will get shut down, or they just won't make money, or they're worried a card will come out and ruin their hand. Like a set or a 2 pair will worry here about the straight coming on the board. So I think it's a reasonable assumption to think that he's fast playing those hands. However, to be fair, I do have him slow playing over pairs like Jack, Jack, and 10-10 just to make his range a little tougher. To be realistic, I also make him call with gut shots and overs because nobody folds to c-bets with that hand, according to my research. Now, once you've done all that, you want to select the red button and turn it to green here. So once you put all these blue filters here, next to what you think he calls with, you click this and you make it green. Now, what that will give you is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. It is a perfect visualization of everything he likely called that flop with. Think of how hard this would be to do in your head or on your own. Imagine just counting all the combos of ace-9 and ace-8 and all this. We used to have to do this with pen and paper back when I started in 2006. I cannot tell you how much I love working with this tool every day now that it is available. It's weird to me when people say they want to be good at poker and they don't play around with a $30 software like this that's this powerful. If you offered me this for $2,000 in 2006, I would have paid it easily. Because trying to do this by yourself is so difficult. Like, look at, there were 414 combos in the pre-flop range, and now you got to count, okay, so he's probably calling with ace-9 off, that's 9 combos. Okay, the ace-9 suited, that's 3 combos. Queen-9, do that for every little square here. And then you have to take the number of combos, subtract it from what's, you have to then decide on the fractions of what's folding, what's raising, and whatnot, and then formulate your plays. It would take forever. If you're really into poker, you should really be into combo counting. And the fastest way to do this is here. And now, once you get to this point, you want to put the turn card on the board so you can see how it shifts the statistics. So far what we've done is we put his pre-flop calling range, we put our hand, we put the board, then we separated out what he called with, and we filtered for just that. Now we got to put the turn card out there to see how that affects everything. Now, let me tell you why each option was wrong, okay? If you said you want to check, that means you're gambling on one of 9 diamonds coming off on the river. Well, you have a ton of equity here. It's going to be difficult to realize any of it. If the river comes an ace and he leads out, you're losing most of the time to a river 2 pair or a better value hand. And you lose a lot of money when that happens because a lot of people are going to call there when they hit the ace. The 9 diamonds left in the deck, of course, give you the win, but how often is that going to hit? All right, guys, I'm going to have to be main poker player here for a second. What percentage of the time does one of 9 cards come on the river? If you said 18% of the time, you are wrong. It is 19.5% of the time. If you did not know the answer to that question and you answered check, you should really ask yourself why you're depending on a card to come when you don't even know how often it comes. By the way, a card coming 19.5% of the time in the river is another way of saying more than 80% of the time it doesn't come. So if you check, that's like going, yes, I lose 80% of the time on this river. Now, if you said bet half pot on that turn, so we have our ace, king of diamonds, we raised, the big blind called us, the board came 8 of diamonds, 6 of hearts, 5 of clubs, then the turn comes 4 of diamonds, and he checks and you bet half pot. Tell me, what's that going to accomplish? Does he fold ace 5 to a half pot size bet? You don't know the answer to that question because I've researched it and people are all over the place with that. Some guys call, some guys fold. People get pretty sticky versus half pot size bets because they've seen a lot of them. And there's no real rhyme or reason as to who will call it or who will fold. You'd like to think maybe an older gent would be more disciplined. But then a lot of times, according to my data, those guys will call. Sometimes you think a young guy, oh, he's not going anywhere, and sometimes those guys will fold. Some of your opponents will call, some will fold, but there's no uniformity, so there's no way to predict it. Therefore, if you don't know anything about something, it'd be a really bad idea to invest in it. If I came up to you and I said, hey, do you want to invest in this ice cream shop I'm opening? No, I'm not going to tell you where I'm opening it. You're probably going to say, no, I don't want to invest in that because I don't know anything about ice cream shops and I don't know where you're opening it and I don't know how much it's going to cost to run, etc., etc. Well, for the same reason, you shouldn't bet half pot on this turn. You don't really know what you're trying to accomplish and you don't even know if that's going to happen. Or maybe you do know what you want to accomplish, which is you want to fold 1 pair, but you don't know if that's going to happen. If you click the button absolute, you will see a new screen. By the way, we haven't gone over this in some of my videos, so I wanted to bring this one in just because it's fun to add new things as you go through this stuff. What this screen will show you is how much of the range is better than a certain ranking. So that 69.4% next to weak pair means 69.4% of his range on the turn is a pair or better. If nearly 70% of your opponent's hands are a pair, and you're not sure if a half pot bet will fold out a pair, then you're making a pretty bad bet here. I mean, you'll probably eke out a small earning because he folds on occasion pairs, and you do have the river card to come, but a lot of times if you have a guy who can check raise and run you off the board, that's not good, and you don't know that about that guy, and a lot of guys are more prepared to do that if you bet half pot than not. So it's one of those things like the play's never good. It can be bad. I would not want you putting your money in it. But look at this. He only has a straight 16.2% of the time. Even if I give him every 7 here, that number wouldn't reach 22%. So like if I went in here and just gave him 8-7, 7-6, etc., without giving him like 10-8 and Jack-8 and some other weaker combos or whatnot, right? He only has 2-pair 19.1% of the time. You're never going to fold that, but if you bet 110% of the pot, your bet will need to succeed 52.3% of the time, which is really likely to happen if he folds out the nearly 75% of hands that isn't better than a weak top pair on an 8-high 1-gap or straight board. So imagine you're sitting there at the top of your range. Like, let's say you just took a flyer here with 8-9. You check on this turn and the guy bets 110% pot. How are you feeling? And if the guy's just folding all of his other pairs, it is going to work more than 52.3% of the time. It's going to work 60-70% of the time. And it's going to go even, a lot of guys, if they're folding all their 8s, it goes up to 75% of the time. So this is a bet that is almost always right. And it's one of the ones I recommend quite often. Now, people always ask, do you do that with a 7? And the answer is, yeah, if I'm playing against another guy who I think is thinking exploitatively. So I would do that a lot in Europe because they know a lot of this stuff. A lot of the really good players in Europe use an exploitative style. They just don't talk about it as much. So they'll fall for that. But if I think the guy's, a very basic player, which to be frank is most players in North America, if he sees a really big bet, he's really likely to fold a pair there and he's not really going to bluff. And if he sees a normal bet, he calls too much. So you can be really unbalanced there. But because your opponent is unbalanced, you can be unbalanced. So case in point, if you're playing rock, paper, scissors, and somebody is just perfectly balanced, randomizes, then you have no choice but to randomize perfect. However, if somebody just throws rock consistently, you can just throw paper consistently. Now, you will be becoming unbalanced, but it will be a reaction to them. And since they were unbalanced to begin with, they call too much versus small bets, they fold too much to bigger bets, you have to adjust. This is what I love about FlopZilla, by the way. You don't have to memorize all those combos. All you have to memorize is what you generally find when you run a number of hand simulations. And what you find out constantly is this. Whenever your opponent just calls you out of the big blind, then calls you on a coordinated flop, he doesn't have a damn thing on the turn. I'm going to repeat that. Whenever your opponent just calls you out of the big blind, then calls you on a coordinated flop, he doesn't have a damn thing on the turn, no matter how scary it looks on the turn. It's to your benefit if the turn is scary, because what he's going to have most of the time is 1 pair, and 1 pair is more likely to fold on a scary turn. Once you get to that scarier turn, you need to bet something that will fold 1 pairs. The best part about this is constantly when I do this, I will run into the 7 here on that board. So like I will overbet and the guy will have pocket 7s. But do you think they raise me? Many times they don't because they're paranoid I have 9-7. So what do? They give me a free river. And do you think they fold once the river comes the 2 of diamonds? After calling an overbet on the turn? Of course not. As long as I bet something reasonable, they're going to call. And it's worth noting here even if this guy shoves every combination of 9-9 and better on this turn versus my overbet, it's like he just shoves over pairs. 9-9. No, for whatever reason, he just raises all in to see where he's at. And he folds every other hand. He's still going to be folding 75% of the time, which makes my bet hugely profitable. If he shoves 9-9 or better and calls with every single 8 on the turn versus an overbet and folds all of his 6s, 5s, and 4s, he's still folding 57% of the time, which means my bet, which needs to succeed 53% of the time, is still immediately profitable, and I got a free river out of the deal. It is supremely difficult for any normal player to get out of this situation because overbets are so rare and misunderstood. Okay, let's do 4 more of these guys. I promise they won't all be this intense. Alright guys, this video has been brought to you by Master the Flop. Guys, this is the video series I did that started it all. I'm still blown away by the results my students got after they watched this video pack. Without getting into too many details about my life when this video series was made, the long and the short of it is this. In the midst of a health scare, I was trying to recount like every post-flop trick I used to get folds and insane value out of marginal hands while always keeping the ball in my court. And these files were the result. I never thought they would be as popular as they were with my students and with people who bought these videos. In this series, you're going to learn how to play the most common trouble boards, get more value, check back correctly, and always stay in control. I show all my work. It's all combinatorics. You can see all the ranges. And just ask yourself, is that how people play? And if the answer is yes, the overwhelming majority of the time, that is how they play, then this will show you the exploitable plays that will help you get folds when you need them. I have a system that I teach that's very much about chopping out pots pre-flop and chopping out pots on the flop. And to go beyond that, you need Master the Flop. You've heard me discuss that in other videos here, which was, keep the betting lead, those kind of concepts, PBSH, position bigger pots, superior hands, heads up. This is expanding past all of this. This is, how should you be thinking during the hands? When should you check back a flop? When should you buy the showdown? How do you bluff people on high card boards? How do you bluff people on suited boards, wheeled boards, paired boards, when straight draws come out, flush draw boards, when all the board is small cards, and more.
And that wraps up this part of the training series. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a lot from it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up to let me know how I'm doing. And if you learned something from this video, please let me know in the comments what your key takeaway or your biggest aha moment from watching this video was. I promise you, if you do that and then look at the other comments that are there, you're going to learn a whole lot more. This is the beauty of YouTube. This is the beauty of community. This is how we grow as a team, by sharing our insights, reading what others' insights were, and engaging in discussion to further develop those thought processes. I really hope you're enjoying this learning series. And when you're ready to watch more training lessons like this one, feel free to check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gripst, or come by my website, www.gripst.com, and join Team Gripst for exclusive discounts, offers, and training opportunities. We got a whole lot of good ones coming on the way, and I hope that you are someone I will be getting to share them with. Let's get stacking. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it educational and entertaining. If you want to join Team Gripst, click on that subscribe button and tap that bell to be notified every time a new video goes live. For behind the scenes updates and motivational quotes from my poker journey, follow me on Instagram. And when you're ready to take one step closer to becoming poker's next champion, click on me in 3, 2, 1, and let's get stacking.